mission give NASA now the confidence to send, a whole colony or swarm of these darts up there, and we're going to have Eddie on standby. We appreciate all your hard work, and congratulations again on a successful mission.
I'll start it and pass it to you. So we have a physics understanding of how impact should scale with size of target and size of impactor and velocity of impactor. If we are ever in a situation where we have to actually deflect an asteroid, we'll want to look at the situation very carefully, because any such event would be very situational. It would depend on the orbit of the dangerous asteroid, the nature of the asteroid. We would want to find out as much as we can about it, the accessible trajectories, how could we get there, how soon could we get there. All of these things play in before you can even begin talking about, well, should we use one large impactor or several smaller impactors? Is a kinetic impactor really even the best choice at all? Among the things that you would want to think about is if it's a relatively small object, but you have to make a large deflection, you might not want to do this with a single impactor because you might accidentally break it, something we don't want to do. Breaking an asteroid is not really the best way to defend yourself from it, because then instead of having one large object heading for you, you have a lot of little objects heading for you, and that's not better. So how to deal with a single situation is going to be situational. Now, how do you turn that into a decision of what kind of ready-to-go capability you want to have? That's more than a science question, more than an engineering question. It's really a policy question and governmental question. So I'm going to pass to Lori for that one.
Well, I'm actually going to go back to Nancy's statement a little while ago, that more important than which asteroids can we defend ourselves from with this technique is we need to know how, when. We need to find them, and we need to identify them, we need to characterize them. As she said, time is the single most important factor in being able to implement any technique for defense.
Excellent, thank you. Do we have any other questions on the line?
No questions, so I'm going to pass to Lori for that one. Well, I'm actually going to go back to Nancy's statement a little while ago, that more important than which asteroids can we defend ourselves from with this technique.
Steve, your line is open. Please
need to know when. We need to find them, and we need to identify them, we need to characterize.
Hi, my name is Steve Gorman, Reuters.
The single most important factor in being able to implement any technique for defense.
Hello?
Excellent, thank you.
Yes, your line is open.
Yeah, my name is Steve Gorman. I'm with Reuters, and I wanted to know what combinations of telescopes, if somebody could run through, so which combination of telescopes, ground-based telescopes and space-based telescopes, if they were also involved, were involved in confirming the results of the DART test.
So the telescopes that have been used so far by the DART team in order to get this result are Las Campanas Observatory in Chile, the Las Cumbres Observatory Global Telescope Networks in both Chile and in South Africa, and the Danish telescope in Chile, as well as the two planetary radar facilities of Goldstone Observatory in California and the Green Bank Observatory in West Virginia. But we have a lot more telescopes than that are contributing. So that was just to do the period change. We saw some spectacular images of the ejecta. Other telescopes are monitoring this. There's actually more than 36 telescopes here on the Earth that are involved, and 3 telescopes in space that are also contributing. So I really would direct you to the DART website to get that full map of all of those telescopes and their locations. This is a very initial result where we've had contributions from highlighting these 6 facilities, but many more facilities are contributing to DART's global observation campaign.
And to just add one note to that, you'll notice that the observations so far have predominantly come from observatories in the southern hemisphere. This is because Didymos is in the southern sky, but it's moving north, and so in not very many more days and weeks, it will be accessible to telescopes in the northern hemisphere, including multiple observatories in the U.S.
Okay, we have time for 2 more. So, operator, will take one in the room. Please come to the mic, state your name and media affiliation.
Hi, this is Sam again from AFP. Nancy, just on the breakdown of the telescopes again. The the first four you mentioned were all optical, then there were a couple of radar. Does radio also have a part to play, or potentially, or in addition to that, or is that not the case? Sorry, it's a kind of a technical question.
No, I mean, there's a lot of different things. I mean, really today we've been focused on this period change result, and so those are the six that have contributed to that result for the team.
Okay, great. We'll take two more on the phone line. I understand we have more.
Jeff, your line is open of NPR. Please state your full name.
Hi there, Jeff Bumfield with National Public Radio. Thanks for taking my questions. I had two. One was, so am I understanding that there is no sort of follow-up SMAC and Asteroid mission with a bigger impactor or any sort of plans for follow-up missions along the lines of DART, that this is it for now? And then secondly, could you explain a little more about how the ejecta helped the asteroid move? So what was the mechanism when the impactor hit? Why did this additional ejecta come off, and how did that move the asteroid?
So this is Lori. I'll take the first part of your question about what's coming next in planetary defense. The DART mission was an incredible demonstration of this first ever test of its kind. We certainly want to make sure we analyze the data and really understand very well what we've done here as we think about other potential demonstrations that could occur in the future, either of this technique or other mitigation techniques. But we are in the planetary world within NASA. As Nancy mentioned, we have a decadal survey that the National Academies provides to us. And as Nancy said, planetary defense was an important part of that National Academies study that was just released in April. And they've actually provided for us the highest priority activities that we should be focused on in the coming decade within planetary defense. And those highest priorities are, first of all, as we've noted, the ability to be able to detect and characterize these objects, that being the single most important factor that we need to know is which ones out there are potentially dangerous and when might they be potentially dangerous. And so that's the Near Earth Object Surveyor mission, which is underway. The next priority mission that they recommended was that we should explore and look into a mission that could be a rapid response, primarily to do the reconnaissance. As we were saying, we really need to know if there is an asteroid that gets detected that could be dangerous. We want to know how big is it a solid rock, or is it a collection or a pile of rubble? That kind of information would be critically important. And so those are the next two highest priorities within planetary defense.
Thank you. We'll take one more question on the line, and then I'll make closing remarks.
Megan, your line is open. Please state your affiliation and full name.
Hi there, Megan Bartels from Space.com, and thanks for taking my question. This is particularly for Nancy, but if others want to chime in, that's great. Those fabulous images that you showed from Hubble and others, how does the ejecta and plume that you see there compare with sort of the most dramatic scenario the team had hoped for? And did that debris at all complicate the orbital measurements to determine that 32-minute change? Thank you.
The images of the ejecta truly are spectacular, and it's just fabulous that telescopes and in space and around the Earth are continuing to share this and understand what's happening. The period change is what it is. This has been imparted, and so this continuing evolution of the ejecta, is obviously no longer really contributing to that and creating this spectacular tail that you're seeing. When the team considered this, like Tom's last picture, I think so nicely showed, every little wiggle and every little thing that the Italian Space Agency Licia Cube so dramatically shows there to understand the ejecta. This is beyond the resolution of the models that were done, but is a wealth of data that the team's going to be digging into to really understand this event. And it's very exciting to be in this position to be doing this now.
Excellent. Thank you so much, everyone, for participating, especially our speakers here at NASA headquarters, and also Mr. Giorgio Sococha, who is joining us on the line, and media who came to attend here today. For more information about the DART mission, you can go to nasa.gov/DART and also follow us on social media. For additional media questions, if you did not have the opportunity to ask questions either in the room or on the phone, please follow up with Josh Handel, who's here over there, and he'll be happy to answer any questions before your deadline. Thanks, everyone, and have a good rest of the afternoon.
I don't think we can afford to fail. I don't think failure should be an option.
No, failure has to be part of the equation. You can't have stunning science without failure.
I think the people who have success without having failure don't appreciate it nearly as much as those of us that have lived through the failures.
The laboratory doesn't seem to acknowledge the failed missions, have kind of disappeared.
It's interesting when there is a loss, people who suddenly go away, who don't want to be associated with the failure or who don't want to set the record straight. We want to bury our losses.
I think that it's the pain we can't accept. I think it's the personal anguish. It's the damage to the reputation. That fear has kept us from being even bolder than we have been, although we've been very bold.
We hurt ourselves by describing the process in terms of winners and losers. You don't know how close you are to the edge. And I put the successes and the failures about 1/8 of an inch apart.
So we stumbled, but let's go back and see what we can learn from that and try it again.
Kind of a neat place to work because it really rewards energetic, smart people. You have people in the lab that have been working here a few years and they talk about, they ask, how do you advance? There's 2 keys to success at the lab, really only 2. Credibility and visibility. Sometimes easily gotten, certainly easily lost. Lab's nestled in these hills. It's pretty. It's a big place, a lot of walking. And you get to use these cool badges.
In the late 1990s, NASA's Jet Propulsion Laboratory was on the verge of a new era of exploring the solar system and beyond. Just ahead were 6 new missions, slated for launch in just 6 months, an unprecedented achievement. There were 2 new spacecraft to target comets. One would test a new propulsion method that sounded right out of an episode of Star Trek, while the second mission would be capturing particles from a comet and bringing them back to Earth, something never before done. A space telescope would search for the birth of galaxies. For our own planet, there was a satellite to measure wind speeds across the oceans. And for Mars, there were 2 new missions. The Red Planet became a major destination following the discovery of a Martian rock that some believed contained fossilized microbial life.
Something really, really huge that's going to be taking place over the next 10 years as we send many missions to the Red Planet. And usually one of the most asked questions regarding Mars is there life on Mars? I think there is life out there somewhere in the universe. I don't believe that we can be the only beings in the universe. So I definitely think there's somebody out there watching.
These new missions were signs of how far Director Ed Stone had steered JPL in a new direction. One that emphasized smaller, less expensive, but more numerous missions.
I had come to believe that we had done the major global exploration missions, and we really needed to move on to a new frontier. And the question is, what was that frontier going to be?
The new frontier had a name: faster, better, cheaper. It required embracing aerospace companies as partners and giving work over to them. And agency officials were to be viewed as customers to be satisfied. The new watchword was, make a deal and stick to it.
If we're going to continue exploring the solar system, our engineering challenge, our science challenge, is to find ways to do that at lower cost.
The changes underway also included staff reductions, even as missions were going out the door to industry that was hungry for work following the end of the Cold War.
We agreed to reduce the size of the staff at JPL by 1,000 over a several-year period. Well, when that was announced, it was a bombshell. The laboratory had never voluntarily reduced its staff.
I'd like to hear from you on what are you concerned about? What are you worried about? What are you fearing at this time?
It was very difficult to explain or justify to the employees who were concerned about their job, and said, look, why are you doing this? You don't have to do this. My budget hasn't been cut. Why me?
And one of my concerns is that there is...
It colored everything we tried to do. It was a grinding downsizing, you know. Every year you'd ratchet down a little more, a little more, a little more.
But back in the back there?
And what should I be doing? Where should I be going for careers? Things like that. Are we going to build spacecraft, or is that industry? Where to go and what to look for in the future is real confusion. I'm not sure where to go with it.
Yeah, well, you might ask, what does our customer in Washington expect of us, right?
For my level, I have the slightest idea of that.
Faster, better, cheaper.
Really comes back to the basic point, though, that JPL, the reason there is a JPL, the reason there is a federally funded research and development center for NASA is to do things nobody else can do. And so we have to always keep in mind that is really the reason we're here. And if industry can do it, then in fact it's much less appropriate for us to continue to do it. So we have to find a way to always move forward. But we are certainly not in an era where we can say this is ours and therefore we get to do it. In fact, we're being encouraged very strongly to make sure that where we can, we involve the wider community. And it really is a challenge for us, because that means just at the time we get our arms around something, we're told, that's great, go somewhere else, do something else, do something new.
There would be no better example of doing something new than the 4th of July landing on Mars in 1997.
Spacecraft should have passed the 600 mark. Airbag should be inflated.
Pathfinder's airbag touchdown was as unconventional as it was daring.
I believe I have a firm signal.
And after bouncing to a halt and unfolding, a tiny rover had trundled off the lander, the first wheels ever to roll on Mars.
Well, it's my distinct pleasure to present to you the first rover on the surface of Mars.
The combination of an airbag landing, the tiny rover, and emoting engineers and scientists made for something very different than the typical NASA mission.
Yeah, opening a new era of exploration, as in the framework of the faster, better, cheaper, actually starts tonight.
Pathfinder captured the hearts of people everywhere, and the mission quickly became the poster child for faster, better, cheaper's most forceful proponent, NASA Administrator Dan Golden. His ambition was to darken the skies with inexpensive but innovative spacecraft, and should a few of them occasionally fail, that, he had declared, was an acceptable risk.
I think all the elements are right here at JPL, and I think if you have confidence in yourselves to go to the cutting edge and not be afraid of failure, just don't be afraid, I think great things will happen.
Golden's pronouncements were always forceful, but they could also be contradictory.
It was such an exciting mission. It was the first mission in the whole series of Faster, Better, Cheaper. I really wanted that to come through. So I thought it would be okay to tell them don't fail. And I have to admit I did that. But I wanted to see where the breaking point was.
Risk-taking was one Golden message. There was a second one: what the consequences would be for not delivering missions on time and on budget.
So he would come out and berate us for the old NASA policies and practices.
Our record of overrun is beyond belief. Our record of not delivering on our promises is very open. And there's a sense if all we have to do is get it working and launch it, all is forgiven. Hopeless. That will never occur again. And we'll cancel the sick chickens. And we'll prioritize. Darwin is going to reign supreme at NASA of the future.
And then he would jump up and down with joy at the liberties we were taking.
Remember, question authority. You've got to do it. And if you're afraid, you don't belong here. And if we at headquarters or anyone forces a contract down your throat that's stupid, and how do they say it? Just say no? I'm serious about that. You better not take it, then take it, and then when a problem occurs, say, I have an excuse. No excuses are accepted. Don't take shortcuts. And if you got a problem, say it, and if you overrun more than 15%, we cancel it.